Because of the vast amount of media we have at our fingertips, it's easy to forget about our physical reality. Social media has the potential to serve as a tool to maintain human relationships, but more often than not, it is used as a way to glance at the most idealized and conventional forms of beauty. Alexander McQueen and Aubrey Beardsley explore the complexities of the human experience by using their respective mediums to comment on societal constructs of beauty and the inherent grotesqueness within it. They both invite us to appreciate the unconventional and brutally human. Alexander McQueen used the setting of an insane asylum in his 2001 Voss show to highlight elements of the human experience that aren't typically seen as a standard of beauty, while Aubrey Beardsley used Art Nouveau nature elements and taboo imagery in his illustrations for Salome to do the same.
Let me give you guys a little bit of context about the Alexander McQueen. So he's been into tailoring and fashion and apparel since he was a young boy. He used to sew for his mom and his sister, and he studied at Central St. Martin's, which is an art school, fashion school in London, where he was from, rest in peace. He was always super into fashion from a young age. He would sew and tailor clothing, and he was really talented at it. He was just a natural. And so the show we're talking about today is the Voss show later on in his career. It's from 2001, Ready to Wear collection. And in this show, he basically put on a display of these models who appeared to be patients walking around an insane asylum or a similar environment. And the style of it, along with all his other work, was very provocative and kind of pushing the boundaries of what could be considered beautiful and what could be considered fashion. And it kind of drew a fine line between, is this fashion or is this art?
So Salome is a play that came out in the late 1800s. It was originally in French by Oscar Wilde, but got translated into English. That's the version we're talking about. It was illustrated by Aubrey Beardsley. He was an illustrator from the late 1800s who was famous for, or was well known for, making provocative images that poked fun at the aristocracy. The reason he was chosen specifically for this play is that there's a quote from Oscar Wilde where he said that Aubrey Beardsley is the only person to know what the dance of the seven veils is, which is a big part in the play where Salome performs a dance in front of her stepfather to seduce him to get what she wants. The reason she has to do this is that St. John the Baptist refuses to give her any attention while she gawks over his looks, and Salome has sworn to kiss his lips. Her plan to accomplish this is to cut off his head and kiss his head by seducing her stepfather, the king, in order to do what she demands of him. St. John is a prophet, and her stepfather does not want to execute him in fear of what might happen. The story of Salome uses the archetype of the femme fatale. Unlike most stories that use the femme fatale that end in the defeat of the femme fatale and the restoration of morality, this story has an abrupt ending where it is left unclear whether Salome won or lost. Because after executing her plan and kissing St. John the Baptist's head, she gets instantly killed by guards at her stepfather's demand. The play's themes revolve around human desire and its clash with human nature. The characters in the story all have an unhealthy relationship with desire, and it leads to their eventual downfall. A soldier obsessed with Salome's beauty kills himself because of jealousy. Salome decapitates St. John and also dies because of her obsession for beauty, and her father, whose future is now uncertain after executing a prophet. The play draws a connection between human beauty and nature in the text by using metaphors to compare human features to nature. One way Beardsley translates this theme into the illustrations is the fashion. The elegant dresses worn by Salome feature a lot of natural elements, or highlight the nude female body in a non-conventional way that rejected the Victorian ideals. Another way Beardsley does this is through the use of phallic and yonic imagery. The illustrations are full of references to genitalia, so much so that a lot of them were censored, and Beardsley intentionally tried to hide some so that they would make it past censorship. His portrayal of nudity in the illustrations celebrate the grotesqueness of being human by rejecting taboo norms on how nudity should be shown.
To immerse you in, the world of Voss, this show, it was like a lot of psychological play. The models were depicted kind of as like these patients in an insane asylum. They have like bonded like wraps over their heads, and they're just clearly like these patients, I guess you could say, but it was very stylized.
The Voss show is a portrayal of the human psyche as well as a display of what McQueen considers himself to be the standards of beauty.
So something notable about the Voss show is that McQueen was one of the first to kind of incorporate the perspective of the model into the show, not just the perspective of the viewer, right? So fashion shows, they're all about the clothes that you're seeing, they're all about the viewer's experience, but he considered the model's experience by having the box that they were walking in be like a two-way glass. Is that what it's called?
Mm-hmm.
One-way mirror?
One-way mirror. Mm-hmm.
One-way mirror. Basically, the models couldn't see outside of the glass. All they saw was their reflection, even though the audience could see through the glass and look at them.
The attention to these details and kind of viewing this show as a performance on the model's end really adds to how it captivates you and creates a realistic world of these blank stares in the models, and you're like transported into their world, into the scene, into the story that he's telling you through these little details.
And so, yeah, he was one of the first to consider that perspective, and a lot of people kind of viewed his work, because all his work was kind of pushing these boundaries like that, and so people viewed him as like, oh, he hates women, like he depicts women in this like almost degrading way, but it was the opposite. It was really just he wanted to use women and their beauty and play it as like a symbol and not like a way to look down on them. He thought it was an empowering thing, whereas most people thought he was like, you know, making fun of them or ridiculing them or just painting them to be like indecent. But he really just loved the like that erotic, I don't know, aura to it all, like in his fashion. Like he saw it as like powerful and meaningful, and so he's one of the first to treat the models in that way. So it's notable throughout Alexander McQueen's entire career that he depicted beauty very different than a lot of the other designers were at the time. He was really like provocative with his work, and he was there was a lot of like religious symbolism where he references like Jesus a lot and angels and stuff like that.
The symbolism in the Voss show includes a lot of nature. It's a big nature theme as well as a mental illness/awareness theme, and it kind of combines those worlds to portray the natural version of these people as something that's so beautiful, that there's beauty to be found in the nature and the raw state of human beings, and specifically these models, regardless of what they're going through mentally, or even just the world that they create in their heads around them. There's a range of different birds that are used to portray this idea, from birds of prey. There's some scenes, there's some portions of the show where the models are walking around with like extravagant displays of these birds around them and the feathers around them. And that's one type of beauty, but then there's also these allusions to other birds or other flight creatures such as moths or butterflies, which aren't typically seen as the standard of a beautiful insect or a beautiful animal. But the point is that all these different realms of nature have a beauty to them in their own world.
I think that in both of our specimens, the craft aspect is really heavy in the nature that's incorporated into both the play and the show. Obviously, there's a bunch of nature in all of McQueen's references usually, but the specific show, there was a lot of like bird reference, as I said earlier, a lot of feathers, and I feel like that's where the craftsmanship really shines, is all those, like the layering of those feathers and all those intricate little details where the girls either look like a bird or they're dressed like a bird, or like a butterfly or like a moth and that kind of thing. Or there's some looks too that are even just full of flowers and vines and stuff like that. And I think that was the most tedious part, I'm assuming, of crafting all these looks. I think what makes someone such a good storyteller is using all those visual elements, like paying attention to the costume, paying attention to the story you're trying to tell, paying attention to how it's being received, you know, like considering the model's perspective like McQueen did. That's all a huge part of why the story is so like readable and relatable. And even if you've never been through something that he's depicting in this story, you could feel it because the energy's there when you pay attention to everyone involved. So in terms of how McQueen achieved everything he did with this show visually, I think a huge part of it, besides the costume design, was the colors. So his signature colors that he uses, like it's like signature McQueen, are red, black, and white. I actually have the book. You can tell, like, you see this? Can you see the string? It's just red, like red, black, and white. But so as you can see, red, black, and white was just signature McQueen. Even this McQueen book, like the red tassel, black and white. It's very simple, but it achieves a lot.
McQueen uses red a lot in his shows to create this visually captivating scene. It's always used in a way that draws your attention immediately to that garment, whether it reminds you of, lust or gore or seduction. It's just always used to accentuate the garment itself, and it's usually used in his extravagant designs. The black is kind of like a mysterious aspect to his shows. There's always a lot of black and white as an underlying tone in the garments that he makes, and it just achieves this like mysterious but also sleek look that he tries to accomplish with his work. And those three colors for the most part work together to be this like gothic, provocative, just eye-catching overall look to his shows, and they give it a really intense and dark feeling. It keeps you in the moment more than other colors would.
Along with browns, there's a lot of brown in this one, like browns, like a mauve, and then like with the red, black, and white. And so I think those colors were super strong, like a great choice too for this show, and blue. I'm in the McQueen dress code. But yeah, I think without those colors, it wouldn't have hit the same.
Through their works, McQueen and Beardsley challenge us to reconsider our perceptions of beauty. They invite us to look for beauty in the human experience instead of only seeing what is conventionally beautiful by blurring the lines between the beautiful and the grotesque.